Hello, this is Rabbi Marcus Rubenstein. I'm so excited that I'll be able to digitally join you very soon in your congregation over Parshat Shmot, over the beginning of the book of Exodus. I'm so excited to be able to meet many of you and be able to lead you in prayer and learning. We find ourselves at a dark time. We find ourselves in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. So many people's lives have been turned upside down. So much confusion. So hard to figure out what's up and what's down, what's going to come in the future. Very unsettling days. In some ways, we can connect to how the Jewish people felt in our Parsha this week, in the beginning of the book of Exodus, Parshat Shmot. We find the Jewish people enslaved to Paro, enslaved to the Egyptians, doing avodah kasha, doing hard labor, suffering, not being able to have any choice to live out their lives in vibrancy. It got so bad that finally Paro actually wanted to kill the Jewish baby boys. He went up to the midwives, Shifra and Puah, and said to them, when a boy is born, do not let them be born. And they were supposed to obey Paro. Their jobs as midwives was to give birth, and they were asked to do the exact opposite, to destroy life. What a terror, what a confounding time, what a confusing time they were facing. But it's interesting and amazing how those midwives reacted to that situation. Their actions still ring today, and I think they can be a guiding force in the way we live our lives and deal with our confusing times. They chose to defy Paro's orders. They chose to make sure that those baby boys lived. And they said to Paro, oh, those Jewish women, they gave birth before we could even get there. Too bad. And the Parsha tells us, the Torah tells us, why did they choose to do this? Because they were not Yira Paro, they were not in awe or in fear of Paro, but rather they chose to be in awe, chose to be mindful, chose to respect the values of God, the values of the Torah. The values that respect and sanctify every single human life, that respect and sanctify that each and every human being is created in the divine image, that each and every human being is an olam katan, is a small world that should be saved and that should be respected and that should be preserved and loved. How amazing that they were able to stand up at that moment of darkness and do what is eternal, do our eternal values of the Torah, instead of responding and reacting to the temporary apparent pressures of their present. Instead, they rather tuned into the small voice of goodness, justice, and humanity, the voice of Torah. But they were built something very strange. They were given a strange reward by God. They were told that they were going to be built houses for them, that God was going to give them houses. Why houses? It seems like such a strange reward. Well, in some ways, we can actually look to the Talmud. Living life with God was given as a metaphor as being and living in a house in which we feel safe, a house in which is solid and protects us and keeps us sane amongst the darkness, keeps us warm amongst the cold, keeps our family together, helps us to live our most holy times. That's what God gave them. That ability to live with God in that moment. The Talmud tells us and gives us a metaphor that living a life with God is like living within a house. But it doesn't stop there. It says, what is the gateway? What is the entranceway to that house? The entranceway to that house is awe. The entrance to that house is Yirat Elokim. It's awe and mindfulness, respect for God. That when we are faced with the temporary pressures of the present, when our world is confusing and dark and scary, we are beckoned and told to listen to God's still small voice, to listen to the values of goodness, to do justice, to love each other, to have compassion. And if we choose to act that way, if we choose to walk through that gate, the gate of listening to God's still small voice amongst the thunder and the fire, then we'll have a house built for us. And at this time where maybe our houses, our actual physical external houses feel confusing, maybe when we can't be in a house together with our community, when our lives are turned upside down, we have to look to the houses that were built for those midwives. It wasn't like their lives were immediately made easy. It's not like God made a stone house be built out of nowhere. But they were given internal houses. They were given places, abodes, sanctuaries for their lives to live, to find peace even within the confounding darkness that they find themselves. To know that by anchoring themselves to the eternal values of godliness and Torah, and the divinity of human life, that they can make it through anything. And of course, their heroic act that built this internal house for them ended up resulting in the most famous baby boy of all time, the most famous Jewish baby boy of all time, Moses, leading to the redemption of the Jewish people. And so too, I beckon us at this time that we, each and every one of us, needs to tune in and choose to be impacted by the call of this still small but eternal voice that is constantly ringing out to us every day, asking us to return to what is truly important. And if we do this, we too can find peace, shelter, and clarity, even in this darkest and most confounding time. I'm so excited to be able to be with you soon, and I hope together we can find clarity and meaning together to live an inspired life. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.